early 3D is rough. But GoldenEye, like, I dare you to go back and play GoldenEye right now. Like, go do it. And if you've never played it, maybe you'll have a different experience, but if you played it a lot back in the day and you're like, I remember this, if you go back and play it, you'll be like, ooh, this is rough. This is a lot rougher than I remember. And I think the same's true for Mario Kart. I think Double Dash really stands the test of time. I think Mario Kart Wii still stands the test of time. I think 64, Mario Kart 64 stands the test of time very well.
I just usually go into games with, like, a lens on my perception to be like, this was made in the mid-90s when 3D was just beginning. So, like, I just forgive a lot more than people probably anyone ever does.
That's fair. I mean, almost every week we play a early PS1 game for a Let's Try, and you just kind of have to be like... yeah, this was like a 1996 game. The controls are going to be pretty whack. I've seen a lot of people recently, and they're people that are probably 10 years younger than I am.
Hey.
Talking about how, like, the original Resident Evil games with the fixed camera and tank controls don't hold up very well. I personally disagree with that. I think they still hold up really well. Although I've been playing them since day one, so... you know, who knows on that. But I've definitely been seeing that happening more and more, where people are like, actually, the series really started with 4, and I'm like, okay. I like this guy with his ice moves.
I was really hoping to, Stop it, you piece of garbage! I was really hoping to just blitz him with the Hyper Beam, but he has 10% health left, and I'm probably gonna die. And I forget if I saved.
Fall down.
Okay, 5 energy. Okay. Please work. Okay. Yes!
Yes, let's go!
Oh. That's the danger of using hyper mode too much. I used it in the preliminary space pirate battle, and I started with not enough.
Oh my god!
But yeah, if I ever die in this game, it's because I just use hyper mode too much. It's never because of the game itself. Or the enemies. Dark Samus. It's really weird that the other guys get dialogue, but that guy doesn't, so he just, like... he has, like, 3 spoken lines in the entire game. It's like, oh no, one of my hunter friends that I'm supposed to care about. The ending is, like, reminiscing about, like, the 2 moments that are in this game with him. It's like, yep, that's my friend, I guess.
I haven't been paying ridiculous close attention, but I also do not remember.
He is, like... yeah, he, like, talks to you twice.
Yeah.
The gimmick of this game is that you remember when Dark Samus just BTFO'd everyone?
Yeah.
She implanted a phazon, I don't even know what it is, like a cluster in our bodies, including Samus, and that gives us access to all these phazon powers, but it is corrupting us. And the other guys went too far, and now they're, like, basically Dark Samus's puppets.
What do you think Metroid Prime 4 could even, like, be about?
Phazon is over in this game, so it just has to be about something else.
Right, I mean, everyone's talking about where is it, when's it coming out, but a more, like, an equally, if not more important question is, like, okay, but what would it be? Like, would it be a return to... would it be almost like a fresh start, even though it's Metroid Prime 4? Would it be like here's a new arc, kind of thing.
The good and bad thing about the Prime games is that they really don't matter at all in terms of like the series, so they can just do whatever they want. They did show off like some gameplay like last year, which is just like some sort of like attacks happening. It was not super descript, but there's some sort of space war happening. That's all we know.
Could they do X, or is that only in the 2D ones?
I don't think they can do X. The X are just so specific and very like civilization destroying that I didn't see anything that was like X related, so I no, they're not going to do that. Like introducing a threat like the X, you have to be a very specific like setting to support it. Like in Fusion, like they're all trapped on that Federation research ship. Oh, cool. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're
because if they get out into civilization, like everyone's gonna die. Like,
right.
No one can survive other than Samus. So that's sort of the good and bad thing about like the X are cool and like super dangerous, but like the X are honestly more dangerous than Metroids because the X just assimilate everything and they propagate so fast, and they don't need anything because they just like asexually reproduce.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because they're a predator,
especially in
the ultra predator.
In the Prime games, the Metroids feel kind of like the first game has like the Metroid Prime. That's the final boss that you fight in there, which is just like this huge, overgrown Metroid infused with Phazon. But even that is like just like protecting, like a Phazon Leviathan like seed that landed on whatever planet is Prime 1, Talos or something. And then it dies, and then like Metroids like show up. I'm not even sure if they show up in Metroid Prime 2. And then in this game they like show up, and it's like, oh yeah, cool. They honestly should have just called the series like Metroid Phazon, or just Phazon. Or just Phazon,
Samus Phazon, or something like that. Yeah,
the first game it definitely makes sense because it's like the Metroid Prime is.
You really can't have the X out on like I guess it would just have to be like on a singular planet where like the entire planet dies, and then you have to make sure it doesn't like get out of the planet. But the second it gets off of that planet, it's ogre for everything.
If there's any humans or anything, they're gonna die.
I do like so the only one I played is Metroid Prime 1, and I kind of like the idea of, quite frankly, I want to say even the 2D, but especially the Prime games, I like them more being like, it is just Samus. So the fact that there were other people, and once in a while you see like, there's less now as you get further in the game, but like talking to people and having cutscenes, I'm like, Metroid Prime doesn't feel like, I feel Metroid Prime's almost like Tomb Raider. You know, Tomb Raider's like Lara Croft, for the most part, just exploring these places. Yes, there are cutscenes and characters in Tomb Raider, but honestly, should there have been? You know what I mean? Like, I feel it should just be going in there, figuring out the secrets, and that's it. You know, kind of thing.
It's sort of, yeah, for someone like you, Metroid Prime 1 is probably super boring.
No. Like I said, I like that. I like the it feels so what I'm looking for. It feels like you're the only, like Samus is the only person in the universe.
Yeah, it's super isolating.
Super isolated, yeah, and that's cool. Even in Metroid Dread, like, yeah, there was very few characters, but the fact that that computer was constantly talking to you, I'm like, it didn't feel super isolated to me. I didn't play it, I was watching it, but, you know, the computer's constantly being like, blah, 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 and you're like, all right, at least I have this friend of a computer, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel as if the computer is definitely mandatory in Dread because that game is weirdly confusing.
Yeah. No, I get that. Didn't, in Metroid Prime 1, wasn't there, like, you figured out the story by, like, finding, like, scanning stuff and, like...
Yeah, it's almost all scans.
Yeah.
And, like, if you're really struggling, like, I think there's, like, a timer or something that it's, like... if they know that you just don't know what to do, they're just like, here, go here. It's
Yeah.
just like completely arbitrary.
Well, it's just like Resident Evil. I like more finding the story through finding, like, files and such. I don't want a character to be like, Chief Irons is crazy, he did this to me. Like, I would rather find, like, the Secretary's Diary that's like, okay, what the hell is Chief Irons doing? Like, I work for him, but what is happening? You know, kind of thing.
I just remembered that I think I can turn off...
And then once you finally meet him, you're like, oh crap, here's this crazy guy. You know?
Yeah, Resident Evil does it really well, where there's lore and, like, dialogue of, like, stuff that happened recently, but not currently. In fact, Resident Evil is probably, like, the best case scenario for something like that, where the dialogue and the log entries supplement the story in a really natural way. And it's not like reading logs. I guess my problem with, like, Metroid Prime and why the game's sort of boring to me is that, like, all the lore is like, oh, the Chozo existed long ago. It's like, reading about ancient civilizations is, like, mildly interesting, but it's not enough to, like, carry an entire story.
It's tough because you can't put yourself in the shoes of these long gone civilizations. Yeah, I saw this.
Like, I think Prime 1's a good game, but I think in terms of, like, that's why I was honestly thinking about LPing that, because, like, I like the game, but, like, I was playing it, I was like, this is gonna be so boring. Even Prime 2, I was like, man, it's just gonna be boring. But this game has, like, more of, like, an active plot and, like, cutscenes, which kind of makes it the worst Prime game, but also the most interesting.
Right.
At the same time.
What the hell? That thing just disappeared.
Yeah, they can teleport for some reason.
So I saw this, I don't know if you want to call it a meme, but whatever, but about Resident Evil, and I thought it was pretty funny. This isn't the exact words, but essentially it was like, every single Resident Evil file goes something like this. April 2nd. Ted and I were crossbreeding dogs with super mutants, and Ted's been poking them with sticks for 6 straight weeks. April 3rd, they escaped. And I'm like, yeah, that pretty much is it. It's just like, hey, we're doing this really crazy experiment. The experiment went wrong. GG's.
The same thing with Silent Hill. It's like, whenever you're like, find the key or the key code or the whatever, it's like, you always find it like in that room being like, I have it locked up in so-and-so room and this person is over here.
Yep. Dude, that awful game we just... What's the name? I almost said Penumbra. Numata, the awful game I just finished. Took it to, like, a ridiculous extent of being like, hey, Bob, I meant to tell you, the code now is 2146. And it's like, thanks. Like, I guess what you just checked for me, game, is that I could read. And I can read, so I can continue in this game. Great.
Sadly, I have to continue this garbage game.
Yeah. There's only been one game, I think. You can correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be wrong. Now we've done literally, I forgot to tell you this. We've done literally 300 Let's Tries. We're up to 300 Let's Tries. And it might be a few more if I ever did a Let's Try and forgot to put them under the playlist. But at least 300 Let's Tries. So those don't count. But of games that I sat out to specifically play the whole way through, there's only one game I ever purposely didn't finish. I finished Kuon. I finished Numata. I finished White Day, A Labyrinth Called School. I finished Oxide Room 106. Do you remember the one game I was like, nope, I'm not finishing this. It's for the PS2. It's expensive. And people nowadays act like they love it and it's amazing. And
Haunting Ground?
Haunting Ground.
Did we ever do an LP of that?
We did.
Oh.
I got like 3 sit-downs in and I was like, F this. I hate this game. I hate this game so much. I finished Clock Tower. I like Clock Tower 3. I finished Clock Tower 3. I finished Clock Tower 1 and 2. Especially 2. I finished 2. I sat there with a step-by-step guide that I had to write myself because the guides online suck butt. And I finished that game. And then I was playing Haunting Ground and I was like, No. Because I forget what they call them, but like the people who follow you are just so ultra annoying that I was like, man, people like this game. Like, this is a game where people are like, oh,
I think people like
top horror game.
I bet there's like horror guys that are like hardcore that like it unironically. But I bet a lot of people just like watch like a YouTube video and they're like, I like Haunting Ground. It's like, okay, go play it.
Yeah. I shared with Trev, by the way, thank you for that. There's a channel called Dungeon Magic, right? Is that what's called? Dungeon Magic?
Oh, man, I forget already.
I think it's Dungeon Magic. Anyway, he does, like, retrospectives of games, but they're not 6 hours long. And they're not ironic Scott the Woz, like, humor and whatever. It's just pretty much like, hey, here's what I think about this. And I shared with Trevor a video he did on Kuon for PS2, which is, you know, infamous nowadays for being like the second most expensive game on PS2. And I think it said, a flawed masterpiece. And I was like, I sent it to Trev, I was like, I disagree with one of these words. It is not even close to a master. Like, if you want to say flawed masterpiece, then Bubsy 3D is a flawed masterpiece.
It's definitely an interesting game.
Sure. There's another way you can put it.
The story is interesting, but everything about it, it's like playing it is miserable. The story makes no sense.
You can say an interesting experience, and I'd go, yeah, okay. You could say a unique experience, and I'd say, okay. But a flawed, like, what? When I say flawed masterpiece, what's the first game that comes to your head? And I say that as if you know off the top of your head, but like, if you were like, it really is an amazing game in through all its flaws, right? The first one that comes to my head would be Blood Will Tell for the PS2. Because that game is definitely flawed. It's low budget.
It's really cool. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece, though.
Yeah, so like I don't even know if flawed masterpiece is even like a technically a thing that exists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe like
so
maybe like John Carpenter's The Thing.
So
and the reason it's flawed is because no one liked it back in the day. I don't know.
These energy cells are the worst part about this game. So all the Prime games, just to complain about the trilogy for a little bit, all the Prime games have like these things that you need to get to enter the final boss. In Prime 1, it's the Chozo Artifacts. In Prime 2, it is the Sky Temple Keys. And in this game, it's the energy cells. Now, in this game, they're the least bad because you only need 5 out of 9 to beat the game. But a lot of those energy cells, like that one we have to get. And there's another one in the Space Pirate world that it's like mandatory to get. But the other ones are like so far out of the way. And the first time that I played this game, the very first time, I got all the way to the Space Pirate world. I finished that world. And then it was like, oh, you have to find the coordinates on this ruined spaceship. We'll see it soon. Probably next sit down. And you need a whole bunch of energy cells to get to like the point that you need to go. And like when I saw that, I was like, I'm done with this game. I don't feel like backtracking and doing a whole bunch of crap. And that's how I kind of feel about all the Prime games, where like, man, it's like 90% of the game's great, and then it just slows to a halt where it's like, get all the Chozo Artifacts, get all the Sky Temple Keys. Especially the Sky Temple Keys are like so ridiculous. They're literally like invisible. You need like one of the stupid visors to even see them. It's like, it's just too much. They didn't need to have this extensive multi-hour long backtracking segment. Like, if I wanted to go for 100%, I'd go for 100%. Stop making it mandatory. And that's why I'm not like the biggest fan of any of these games. Although I think they're all really good. I just don't understand why they did it for every single one.
By the way, the YouTube channel is Dungeon Chill. That was Dungeon Magic is an NES game. That was my bad. Here are some examples, by the way, of what just random people online say are flawed masterpieces. BioShock Infinite. It's flawed, all right. Symphony of the Night. Trevor's seething over here. Seething.
I mean, Symphony of the Night definitely has flaws. It's way too easy, but other than that,
Here's one that actually I could see being part of the definition. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. Because that game is incredible, but it notoriously barely has an ending because I think it was BioWare or Obsidian was like, we need to get this out immediately. You have no time. You have to put it out.
Lucasfilm.
I'm sorry, Lucasfilm. Obsidian made the game. Yeah.
Obviously they didn't, but Obsidian's like career. They are the most tortured developer.
Dude, they really are.
Because they're always giving these projects where it's like, okay, make a sequel to this beloved game, but you have like a year or like a year and a half to make it. And it's like, man, could you give them better working conditions? Like they did Fallout New Vegas, which everyone loves.
18 months.
But the problem with that game is that it's like, it's buggy and unfinished because we're given 18 months to make a big open world RPG. And the worst thing about it is that Obsidian's made up of key members of, like, the people who made Fallout 1 and 2. So, like, the people that made those games are finally getting, like, oh, you have the chance to make a new Fallout game. Also, it's on this horrible engine and you have 18 months. Also, if you don't get an 85 Metacritic score, you don't get your bonus.
Dude, the fact... If I was a Bethesda fan, which I am notoriously not, I don't even like Oblivion and Skyrim. Anyway, if I was a Bethesda fan and I found out that they purposefully didn't give Obsidian their bonuses because it got an 84 instead of an 85 on Metacritic.
What a crappy contract.
Absolutely awful. Like,
that is the most scummy contract I've ever heard.
I'm sorry, but it's like, it is one-off. If it was like 60, I'd be like, okay, yeah, the game's crappy. But, like, it's so close that just do it. Like, just give it to them. Like, I know you don't care about sports, but what happens a lot of times in the NFL in the last week, even teams that are completely out of the playoffs, say I have something in my contract, and this is a thing that happens all the time, where if I score 10 touchdowns, I get an extra $1 million. And I'm sitting at 9 touchdowns going into the last week, and my team's like 3-14. Like, we suck butt, right? What coaches will generally do is feed that person the ball until they hit their incentives. And they try to get all their players to hit their incentives if they're close. Like, if I'm like 5 touchdowns away, of course not. But if I'm like 1 touchdown away, they're like, get him his touchdown, get him his incentive, our team sucks anyway, at least we're helping out. So, like, that's one case where sports is actually, like, cool for the players, and it makes the last week of the season very interesting, because you're like, why are they throwing it to this guy like 100 times? It's like, oh, he has an incentive, like, he needs 5 catches this game. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll get him 5 catches immediately and then just sit him and be like, you got your money, we don't want you to get hurt. You're good. So, again, that happens in sports. Why couldn't Bethesda be like, you know what? This game sold really well. It's an 84, it's one off. They were like, no, the contract says 85, and this is an 84.
Specifically, the company that owns Bethesda is ZeniMax, and ZeniMax seems like it's one of the worst.
Yeah.
Whoops, come on. So I'm back here because I actually did forgot to need Tank, but it's like really close to here, so I'm just going to go grab it.
Another couple examples they give real quick. Some of these games I've never heard of, but Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
That's a good one. I really like the game, but it's very flawed.
Alpha Protocol, which... game's flawed. I've never played it, but I've watched some videos on it. It's flawed for sure. I don't think it's a masterpiece. Oh, here's a good one. Legacy of Kain games, potentially. Like, I want to love Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen.
Blood Omen is a cool game.
It's a cool game, but...
the gameplay is... I mean, it's a game that was made in, like, 1996, so it's, like, it's so early. But, yeah, it's... I would not call that a flawed masterpiece. I would say it's a cool game, really good voice acting, cool story, awesome aesthetics. Game sucks.
One of these websites said Resident Evil 5 is a flawed masterpiece. Okay. That's just as someone who's played that game like 3 times.
RE6 is a flawed masterpiece.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, it's happening. It's happening at some point. Yeah, remember we used to have that one guy who would comment on all of our stuff, but hasn't for like years. Alex something or other. Swingle, that's it. And he would always get into playful arguments with me because I would be like, RE6 is literally a 1 out of 10. And he'd be like, actually, and I was like, nope, I refuse.
He also liked Mega Man X6, so he's just a subhuman. I'm glad he stopped commenting.
I have seen that people have started to say that 5 and Mega Man X5 and 6 are good. And having watched you play those, no. Well, 5 is fine.
Wait,
6 is not good. Mega Man X5 and 6.
Oh, yeah. X5 I like.
Fine.
X6 is horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, the other one that you just sent me. It's not, people aren't calling it a flawed masterpiece, but we're in the Sonic cycle of people being like, Sonic Forces not so bad.
Yep. Dude, literally.
Stop hating on it. It's fine. It's good. It's not good. It's horrible.
Somebody made a comment on that thread where everyone was like, Sonic Forces isn't so bad. And they were talking about Mega Man, and they're like, okay, but like Mega Man fans and YouTubers aren't going, actually Mega Man X7 is pretty good if you think about it. It's like, no one is. Literally no one.
What? Hey.
Mega Man X is such a weird series. It has potentially the best video game ever made, which is Mega Man X1. Just so perfect.
It's definitely in my top 10.
Just so perfect. I mean, I feel like even if you're not a huge fan of like the type of games, it's got to be in everyone's like top 50 or 100. It's flawless. Mega Man X2, it's alright, pretty good. Like 7 out of 10. Mega Man X3...
I think X2 is like a 9 out of 10, but I can understand why people say
Mega Man X3 was made by a different company, and they didn't care, and it was a super late release. And it just has a lot of weird... It's like a 5 or 6 out of 10. Then X4, they put their time back into it. Probably a 7 or 8 out of 10. Pretty good game. And then it's just all downhill from there. And X7 is like a legitimate 0 out of 10. It is just the worst. And then X8, if I recall, is like a 3 out of 10. It's just boring.
It's not a 3 out of 10, but it's just, you can feel that it's just so cheaply made. It also has a lot of, like, voice acting, but it's like the type of... It's not the funny type of, like, awful, cheap dub. It's just, like, the cringe-inducing, like, Samurai Legend Musashi type of dub, where it's just, like, painful to listen to.
But what a weird series. And, say what you will about the original Mega Man series, 1 through 11... 11 at this point. But pick your worst one out of that, which some people would say Mega Man 8. I might say...
I would say 5 just because it's the most boring, but that game's still good.
But still, 5 is a good game.
But when I was doing when I was practicing and beat like Mega Man 7 a lot and did the LP on it, I like 7 a lot. I know some people say that, but I think 7's better than some of the mediocre.
No, I agree. Games. And 11 is good, but not great. But still, like, Mega Man X goes from the highest highs to the lowest lows. Like, the original Mega Man series goes from, like, really great highs to, like, pretty good, There's none in that series. I know, there's no way someone would be like, Mega Man 7 is awful. That's just not true. But it is weird how that series goes that route. When you are in this mode, do you lose energy if you're not shooting?
Yes, slowly.
Okay.
Also, if you stay in there too long, you become corrupted and have to expend all your phase-on or you die. And that means you have to use an entire E-tank.
It's a really cool gimmick.
I also think that if you just spend too much time in there, like, naturally, even if you, like, manage the phase-on bar, I think you die as well. I've never done it, though, so I might be wrong. But I think if you, like, you have to stay in there for, like, a long time, like, unnecessarily so. But I believe that is true.
I really like glass cannon options in games. Where it's like... Double-edged sword, I guess, would be like, you're stronger, but you take more damage, or, whatever kind of thing. You're stronger, but it takes damage from you. Even in beat-em-ups like Streets of Rage, you know how they have those moves where they're, like, clear screen moves, but you sacrifice a little bit of life? I'm like... I always like that, because, you don't want to have life taken, but, like, if there's 10 enemies there, more than likely they'll take more than that amount of life,
Yeah, that's why my personal favorite difficulty in any video game is Kingdom Hearts 2 Critical Mode, which is just glass cannon mode. You die in a couple hits, or 1 or 2 hits, but you kill bosses so much faster. I love difficulties like that.
Yeah, modes and bosses where you just essentially have to chip away at them for like an incredibly long time are honestly kind of like can be kind of boring.
It is a difficulty, but I do think it is the most boring type of way to make a game hard.
I really hate
when difficulties are just like it's you do less damage and the enemies do more damage to you. It's like boring.
Yeah. I really hate, and I'm trying to think of examples of this. I guess off the top of my head, something like the optional bosses in Final Fantasy X is a good example. But I really hate bosses where they're like incredibly long, and your only goal is to like not ever make a mistake. If that makes sense. So like.
Yeah,
this boss is 30 minutes long, and if you make the wrong decision one time, it's back to the drawing board. Whether it's active battle or not, you know.
Penance in Final Fantasy X is exactly that, where basically if you ever let Penance attack while his two arms are alive, you just instantly die.
Just pretty. I don't know. It's pretty boring. At least something like as a counterexample in Final Fantasy VII. Ruby Weapon does not have a ton of HP, all things considered, but it's almost like a glass cannon kind of boss, because it's either going to kill you real quick, or you're essentially probably going to kill it real quick.
You also have to figure out, like...
what's going on.
What is even happening.
Right, that is also true. I mean, imagine... Isn't that
I bet every kid had just entered that, and you're like, oh, I can't damage Ruby, and he took away all my attacks, and I can't do anything. What is happening?
Isn't that the one where you can't use Knights of the Round because it just... combats it, if I recall.
It's immune to it while its tentacles are down.
Right, that's what I meant, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's like, it hard counters it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Ruby is like, it's a cool fight, but it's one of the weirdest fights ever.
It is very weird. But at least it's not one of those fights where like you're constantly going, you know, for a super, super long time.
Hey, can you open?
No. This is the power of the Wii.
When did we start? It's like 9 o'clock right now, 8:58. When did we start?
Actually, I can see when you messaged me.
Whenever you messaged, I think we started...
7:45.
Okay, so it has been an hour. I guess... Yeah, I just saved. Let's just call it here.
Okay. And it might have been like 5 minutes. It might be more like 70 minutes, but...
We're almost... Yeah, we're mostly done with this planet, so... Cool. This is right before like a bunch of combat, so interesting part to start with next time.
Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time with more Metroid Prime 3 Corruption! And bye.